Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Social Strategy Podcast, where we talk about all things social strategy or whatever. Yes. Now, today we are talking about week 6 in the Big Brother 23 house. We are officially in the jury stage of the game. Yay! Things are finally solidifying in the house, kind of officially. It's always been there, but hey. Weekly things are beginning to become more and more solid. And by things, I mean the cookout. This week has officialized the fact that there are 6 cookout members in the jury, which means if one of them makes it to the end with someone not in the cookout, that is technically 5 jury votes if we're thinking everyone's going to vote loyally to the cookout. That is very important because that means there's a guaranteed cookout winner, basically. As long as one makes it to the end, you know what I'm saying? We start this week off with Kyland winning the HOH. This is the first person to win 2 HOHs this season. Kyland nominates Claire and Derek F. They are both pawns, technically, even though at first he was thinking he might want to target Claire. Kyland wins veto, but only after Kyland doesn't win a veto. Alyssa wins veto. But these powers have been released into the game. Ooh, that's a doozy. We're just going to take these powers week by week. This week, the power is, basically, if you have enough money, which was granted by America, which everyone had enough because it was $50, then you are allowed to play in a competition in order to win the chance to bet on a veto player. If the veto player you bet on wins the power of veto, you yourself will get a second power of veto. All the optics of that doesn't necessarily matter. Alyssa wins power of veto. Kyland bet on Alyssa. Therefore, Kyland and Alyssa both have a power of veto. Kyland uses his veto to take off Claire and put up Britney. Alyssa does not use her veto. Final nominees are Britney and Derek F. It is looking like Britney is going to be leaving the game, considering the cookout controls the votes. Boom. Now, the cookout is very much so about to march to the end of this game. It's going to be very hard for them to be separated, even with the upcoming twist, just because they have all of the control. They control the numbers. All of them have made it to this point, and they are the majority of the house now. So moving forward is I'm going to be expecting everyone not in the cookout to just be the next 4 people evicted. Claire, DX, Sarah, Beth, and then Alyssa. I'd expect all of them to go in whatever order, gone, until the top 6 is the cookout. Now, it may not happen that way, but that's what I am expecting. That's the way the game's most likely going to go, I feel. The cookout all has a lot of good players in it. So I'm pretty sure they'll be able to pull off that. Right. So we're just going to go ahead and go through each of these players. It's going to be very interesting because if you're not in the cookout at this point, you really have a very, very small chance of winning this game. So, it's going to be a tough run. But we're just going to go through them. Starting off with Alyssa as per usual. Last week, Christian was evicted, who was Alyssa's biggest partner, and I was thinking that this could be a good thing for Alyssa because it could get the target off of her. It can make her able to integrate herself well. But I'm noticing that this jury stage is really irrelevant for the people not in the cookout. There's not really any integrating for her to do because the people in the cookout are it's official. There's not going to be any manipulating your way into that or around that or within that. There's nothing much she can do about that. With the people outside of the cookout, they're all being controlled by people inside of the cookout. There's just not much she can do. Alyssa thinks she has Xavier as her number 1. She thinks she has a relationship with Kyland and Sarah Beth. Well, does she? I don't know. She thinks she has certain people, and she doesn't. She barely even has Sarah Beth. Alyssa is alone, just like every other non-cookout member, kind of. But I want to say especially Alyssa Is it especially Alyssa? Especially Alyssa at this point doesn't really have much to hold on to, except for the fact that the people in the cookout are not really looking at her to go soon or first at all, because she doesn't seem like the type of person to figure out the cookout. So that's how that's going for her. There's not much Alyssa can do to win this game. Alyssa would have to win out to win this game. She would have to just constantly win every competition once it hits top 7, if she makes it to top 7. And that's not likely. I don't think Alyssa's going to be able to do that. So I don't see Alyssa winning this game at all. It's going to be really, really bad for Alyssa these next coming weeks, because she doesn't really have much room. Xavier is pulling for Alyssa to make it pretty far, but not pulling for Alyssa to make it past the cookout. There is no getting past the cookout for Alyssa, I feel like, at all. I feel like she is the least likely. Her and Sarah Beth are the least likely to get past this little cookout era, I feel. Unless she can make it to the end and win out, there's really not anything for Alyssa to do. There's not any room for Alyssa to grow or anything. Her position in the house sucks as it is, even if the cookout didn't exist. But since it does, it's even worse. The people outside of the cookout aren't necessarily checking for Alyssa. Derek X doesn't necessarily like Alyssa. And he thinks she's coming after him, and she is. She's not even targeting someone in the cookout. She's targeting Derek X. That's not good for her. Right now, it's just not much to say about non-cookout members. And it's interesting that I started this podcast with this season, because between this season and the committee last season, there's just not anything to say for these people not within that alliance, especially at this jury phase. Once this jury starts, it's kind of like, oh, what do I say, So really, Alyssa doesn't have a chance. She doesn't really have a path. Her best bet will be winning out. Don't think she can do that. She gets a 3 out of 10. There's not much you could do. Okay, 3 is really low. She gets a 4 out of 10. 4 is really high. Like, you are not winning. If 5 is average, 4 is slightly below average. I don't think she's slightly below average. I think she's ass out. 3. Alyssa gets a 3 out of 10. No way. There's just no way. 3 out of 10. She's not winning the game. From this point on, she's not winning. She's just not making it. There's nothing she could do. And I wanted to make this podcast, and I wanted to make this these videos because I wanted to talk about what people could do in order to get to the end of the game. What could she do? What could Alyssa could, she could lie and she could manipulate. If she had got a good or better bond with Kyland, maybe she could. This does not apply this season, because the reason that the cookout is together has nothing to do with the optics of the game itself. It had nothing to do with what happened in this game. It had nothing to do with anything that occurred within the house, anything that occurred within the players. There was no personal bond that she could break. Nothing she can do. So it doesn't really apply this season. Last season with the committee, I could be like, oh, well, it's not in Danny's best interest to do this. They could separate Danny and Tyler. They could make Danny hate Tyler a little more. They could make Tyler hate Danny a little more. They could tell Danny. They could tell Christmas about this, and there were openings. There was ways to try. There's no reason for her to try. I don't even want to see Alyssa try, because it's going to be sad. It's going to be saddening how it doesn't work. So it's a no for me. 3 out of 10, nothing really she could do. 3 out of 10. Next, Azah. This is someone who's in the cookout, so I can actually talk about them. Okay. From the beginning of the game till now, Azah has played a very, very low-key game, a very non-strategic game. She just kind of laid low, and she's continuing to lay low. That's kind of her strategy. I think she's trying to be a floater. She's trying to be June and Allison, but she's not really doing that. She's just kind of sitting there. But since Azah is in the cookout, she's basically guaranteed top 6. No one in the cookout is looking for Azah to leave first, but no one in the cookout is looking for Azah to be in the final 2 or 3 either, except for maybe Tiffany. And Tiffany has one of the strongest pulls when it comes to what's going to happen in the game strategically. So that could be very, very good for Azah. If Tiffany comes around to these thoughts that she has about Azah could see herself in the final two. And that is very good. You made it to final two. If you're in the final two, that means you have a chance to win the game. It's possible you could get the votes. Azah is someone who has maybe 2 locked in votes in the jury if she makes it to the end with Big D and with Britney. 2 out of 5 is not bad. That means she only needs to get 3 other votes. If the person sitting next to her has made 3 people bitter, if the person sitting next to her messes up really bad, if the person sitting next to her is just not a good player, Azah could get those 3 votes. But I don't think anyone in the cookout qualifies as that person. I think the only person Azah could beat in the final 2 is maybe Big D. And that's maybe, So I think Azah's best chance at winning this game is to be in the final 2 with Big D. I don't think she can get to the final 2 with Big D. But if she does get to the final 2 with Big D, that's her best chance. And she still may not even win then, which is not good. That means she basically cannot win, or it's going to be very, very hard for her to win. What Azah needs to do is step her game up. She wants to win competitions, but she needs to start winning these competitions. If Azah can pull out a bunch of competitions, or even just a few competitions, and make a few moves with those competitions, her status of being able to win is going to change drastically. If it comes down to the top 6 and she's the one who wins the HOH and she gets out Kyland, now Azah can now turn into the person who is going to win the game. So things can really change for Azah. So she still has a lot of hope in my eyes. Even if she doesn't do anything strategically, she could just, oops, she was the HOH that got Kyland out. Oops, she won veto. And so now she has to vote out Tiffany. Now she's the one who votes out Xavier at top 4. Something like that. If that happens, then she could just, oops, I won. It's very possible. It's very much so Tara. Tara had the same kind of beginning of her game as Azah. Well, similarly, Tara was doing a little bit more, but laying low and then at the end winning these vital competitions, causing big players to go home because you won these competitions could get you the win. So Azah's not dead in the water at all. Azah has a decent chance to possibly have that happen, and that's really good for her. Plus she's in the cookout. She's basically guaranteed top 6. One of the strongest persons in the cookout wants her to be in top 3, and no one necessarily wants her to go first. So I can see Azah making it to top 4 easily, being dragged to top 2, and if certain things have happened, she could win the game. So I'm gonna give Azah a 5, because I feel like if you're in the cookout right now, you're not a 4. I feel like if you're in the cookout right now, you're just a 5. Like, you're automatically a 5 because you automatically have a chance. You have a chance, and a lot of the bigger players in the cookout are looking at each other, and Azah isn't one of those bigger players, so she could really sneak by and win, I think. I think she has a likely chance, and I think she has options. So I'm going to give her a 5 out of 10, and I'm moving along. Britney. In a normal season, Britney could have a chance. In a normal season, this vote would probably flip and Britney would probably go. Maybe. Maybe Britney wouldn't even be the target if this was a normal season. But it's not. This is Big Brother 23 and the cookout exists. So Britney has no chance. Britney cannot stay. Britney will not stay. But Claire and Derek X really did want her to. And if they had the right people in the season, she probably could have stayed. But she's not going to. There's nothing she can really do. In another season, there's a lot that she could do. She could really campaign better or whatever. And she's campaigning and she's doing what she needs to do. And she's doing it good, well enough. So I like Britney, but she's just not going to make it. There's just not much else to say. You're just not going to make it. So it's a 2 out of 10. She doesn't really have a chance at all. So that sucks. Goodbye, Britney. Next is Claire. I'm disappointed in Claire. Claire's beginning of the game, Claire was doing a decent job at positioning herself well. She positioned herself well, and then she kind of sat in that position for weeks and just left it there. She could have went home this week had Kyland just decided, like, I'm not going to use the veto. Claire is the one who needs to go. She could have went home. I will say props to her for having the relationship she has with Hannah, Tiffany, and Derek X. That's something that really does help her stay this week. So it's good that she did do that work to get those relationships and to have those strategic bonds, because that did save her ass. So that shows that she's a good player. And her wanting Britney to stay over Derek F is good. That shows that she's a good player, but she's not in the cookout. And she's not figured out the cookout, and she cannot do anything about the cookout. So she's ass out. She's not going to make it to the end game. There's not really a path for her unless she starts to win. Now, Claire is decent at competitions, but she hasn't shown herself to be a beast or really good. She's only won one competition. So it's not likely that she can do well. I feel like it's hard for me to give anyone outside of the cookout, even a 5. I just feel like she's not even looked at being the person who she's most connected to in the cookout is trying to get her out next week. No one's really vouching for her but Hannah to be the last person not in the cookout. But I don't think that's how it'll end up. It might, but it might not. And even then, you're still getting just 7th place. And there's not much you can do after that. And none of this is necessarily her doing. Well, her relationship with Hannah does help her. Her relationship with Tiffany does help her. She chose the right people to have good relationships with. So it is kind of her doing. But in general, it's like, if you last that long, it's just because Hannah decided she wanted you to last that long, you know? So it's like, there's just not much to say for people not in the cookout. There's not much game left for them. It's like the end of the road already on week 6, which sucks. But hey, it is. So for Claire, it's like, for her to succeed in this game, her and DX would literally have to beast out, win back-to-back HOHs or something like that. And they would have to knock out these cookout members. That's not fully unlikely, but it still is not that likely. And these twists don't necessarily help them. If Derek X wins the next HOH and he's like, fuck it, X and Kyland get on the block. If I need a renom, I'm putting up Derek F. Then that would be ass out for the cookout. But with this little Russian roulette shit, they could easily put Sarah Beth on the block if the cookout member wins it. So it's like, y'all are kind of ass out. Y'all are kind of sitting on your ass, you know? So with that being said, Claire, you got to get 3, just like Alyssa. In my opinion, you got to get a 3. There's not much you could do. You're smart. You might get drugged to the end of the game. You have a slightly more likely to get drugged to the final 7. I will say it's more likely for, I feel like, Hannah and Tiffany to betray the alliance for Claire. I feel like Claire and Derek X are the most likely people not in the cookout to outlast a cookout member because of someone in the cookout. So you know what? I'll give her a 4 because of Hannah. Because I feel like Hannah and Tiffany could have a conversation at 7 and 8 and be like, maybe Claire can make it past Kyland or something like that. And that's a very small chance, but it's a chance, and that will be a testament to Claire's relationship with them. So I will give her a 4 out of 10, which is still horrible. That's not a good score. 4. Maybe. No, a 3. No, a 3. A 3. Because I feel like her threat level is just bigger than Alyssa's. But her possibility is bigger than Alyssa's. But it just evens itself. 3. 3 out of 10. You're same as Alyssa. Alyssa 3. Ozza 5. Britney 2. Claire 3. I like it. Next, Derek F. Derek F's not winning. He's in the cookout, so that's great for him. I kind of want to give him at least a 5 just because he's in the cookout. That's kind of how I feel. It's like you still get to the end game. No one in the cookout necessarily wants Derek F going first. A lot of them want Kyland going first. Maybe after that, it'll probably be Derek F though. No one necessarily wants Derek F in final 2. Maybe Kyland does. And that's good for him because if Kyland can win out and get them to final 2, then that's good that Derek F gets to the final 2. Derek F has 2 sure votes in the jury, and if Kyland has made people bitter and he is in final 2 with Derek F, Derek F could win the game. It's a path there, it's possible, and he's in the cookout, so he's going to make it to the end game. I don't think he's going to win the comps to get himself there. I think if he makes it, he'll get drugged there, but it's possible that he could get drugged and the person who drags him is bitter. He could have Josh upside. People called him Josh at the beginning of the game, and it's like, they might be right. So with that being said, I have to give Derek F a 5. I feel like it's kind of likely that he could win this game. He has a chance, being drugged as a goat. So hey, there's not much. What Derek F should be doing within the cookout is he should be making more. No, he has a deal. He has a final 3 deal with Xavier and Kyland. He's confident about that, and he nurtures that. He has a final 2 deal with each of them, I believe. So I think, or with at least Kyland. So I think Derek F is doing what he needs to do. But he's not preventing Kyland from being the first target in the alliance, so that's bad because he kind of really needs Kyland to be taking him to the end and for Kyland to be ruining his own game at the same time. So the path that Derek F has is for him and Kyland to make final 2, Kyland to drag him there, and for Kyland to be seen as a bad jury management person, which is a likely scenario. But I want Derek F to put in more effort to do it, to make it happen, so that it can seem like he's more of an active player in what happens. You know what I'm saying? Derek F has a lack of respect, I feel, when it comes to the game. I don't feel people think he's actually playing. People just think he's at summer camp, and that's not good for him. But it's a 5 out of 10. I still think he has a decent chance, and he has a pathway there. So there you go. Next is Derek X. Derek X is not in the cookout. But out of all the members in the cookout, Derek X is kind of the one who's being tugged along a little bit by people like Tiffany, people like Azza and Xavier, people like Azza don't necessarily want him to go. Hannah is struggling to decide if she wants him to go, and people don't really think it's smart for him to go because if he goes, the other members of the cookout, the other members not in the cookout, the other people not in the cookout will target the cookout. Instead of targeting Derek X. So it's kind of valuable for him to stay a little bit longer. And if he stays a little bit longer, someone like Tiffany might be like, win HOH, babe. And he can win HOH. Derek X is very possible to start winning out these little in-game competitions. Derek X is very good at competitions. He's better than any person in the cookout at competitions. So that could really help him make it far in this game. If they keep dragging him along, he has he's going to get $100 each of these weeks. If he wins that coup d'etat, and then he uses it, and then oops, a cookout member ends up going home that week, and then he wins the next HOH, and oops, hold up, Derek X is now about to be in final 5, final 6. He could just win out, and if that's the case, then Derek X could win the game. I think out of anyone not in the cookout, Derek X is the one who has the most potential to still win the game. He's the one person who I could see still winning the game who's not in the cookout. So I will give him a 5. I will give him a 5. I think he has the same amount of possibility to win as Azza and Derek F. I feel like his competition ability is just as strong as Azza and Derek F's win ability, honestly. And if he gets to the end, he's likely to win. He's going to have a lot of votes by his side, I feel. But if he makes it to the end with the cookout member, which probably would be his path, is to get to the end with the cookout member, he probably won't even win. So I might give him a 4 because he's not in the cookout, even if he makes it, he probably still won't win. He could probably maybe get Tiffany's vote, but she will probably be the person he's sitting next to. I don't know. So even if Derek X makes it to the end and he's not in the cookout, he's next to a cookout member, he's going to lose. If he makes it to the end and he's able to bring someone like Claire, that's going to be highly unlikely. So it's a 4 out of 10. There's not much he can do. That's his only winning path, is winning the comps to get to the end. Unless Tiffany decides, I want to go to final 2 with Derek X. And that's all in Tiffany's own merit. That's off of only whether or not she wants to do that. And I don't think she will decide to necessarily do that. Next is Hannah Chada. I believe Hannah is in one of the best positions within the cookout. Kinda. Now, no one in the cookout is necessarily playing for their own individual game. They're kind of playing for the cookout. So the way I look at her game is how how she is as a player and then how she is embedded within the cookout, because clearly she's playing for the cookout. So when she's telling people, "Ooh, maybe Derek X needs to go," I understand that that's not good for her personal game, but she also understands that's not good for her personal game. It's not like she's saying this thinking she's doing what's best for her game. Hannah is very aware, and so is every other cookout member, is very aware that what they are deciding to do is not going to be best for their game. And then you could say, "Oh, well, X is deciding to do what's best for his game and not the cookout." I disagree. I think X's number one, Alyssa, is the weakest of everyone's number ones. So if X's number one was Derek X, I believe X would also be saying, "Okay, Derek X has to go because Derek X is going to win the game." I just think just so happen it's Alyssa. If X's number one was Christian, I think X would be like, Christian has to go for the sake of the cookout. So I don't think anyone in the cookout is outsmarting anyone else. I don't think X is outsmarting them. I just think X has the luxury of having a weak non-cookout member pair, which is Alyssa. So with that being said, I feel like Hannah wanting Derek X out is nothing different from anything else any other cookout member is wanting or doing or thinking. Therefore, I just put them all on the same level in that regard. So with that being said, within the cookout, Hannah does have a final three with Xavier and Tiffany. This is probably what's going to be the actual final three if the cookout makes it to top six, because Kyland's probably going to be targeted first. Even if he stays, he's probably going to get out second or third. And then Derek F and Azza are going to be at the bottom of that, and they're going to be targeted next and next. The issue is if Chada goes to final three with Xavier and Tiffany, yes, I believe Tiffany will take Hannah, and so will X. But I feel like it's going to be harder for Hannah to beat X or Tiffany in the final two. I feel like Hannah's ability to win in the final two is going to be very hard unless she's against like Azza, or Derek F. So for her to want to go to the end with Xavier and Tiffany is, I feel like, not a good idea. I feel like it could get her to final two, but against Tiffany, she's not going to have the votes. Against Xavier, I don't think she will have the votes. I don't know if she will have the votes, but she might. She still has a chance to win. She might be able to get the votes, and she might be able to win out and be the one who's taking people, and that will help her resume. Winning these comps at the end of the game, which she plans on doing, and I think she could be capable of doing, is going to help her resume, and could help her get the win. But I feel like it's looking scary for her, seeing who she's next to, seeing who she's really trying to play with. Tiffany wants her to come around to bringing Azza to the final three. This is better for Hannah, because if Hannah is able to make Azza take her, Hannah will beat Azza. And if Hannah can win the competition against Azza, and Hannah can cut Tiffany, take Azza, and then Hannah will definitely win. I feel like Hannah's best path to the win is against Azza, and it's taking Azza and Tiffany to final three rather than taking these boys to final three. So I think it's possible that she will come around to this Tiffany plan of taking Azza to final three, but so far she hasn't. And what she personally wants is Xavier and Tiffany, and I think that's not good for her game. But I still think she's very well positioned. I still think she has no one in the cookout coming after her at all. And I think that's good. I don't think she's even anyone's first or second person in the cookout they want to go. I think Hannah's basically guaranteed final four based on what everyone wants within the cookout. And that's really, really good position to be in. And I think she's smart, and I think she will come around to the fact that maybe she can't beat Xavier, maybe she can't beat Tiffany, maybe I do need to take Azza. I have a lot of faith in the fact that Hannah will realize that Azza's the one she needs to make it to the end with, and I think it's possible that she could try to make it to the end with her and maybe make it. If that's the case, I want to give Hannah an 8 because I like Hannah. Her being in the cookout automatically gets her to a 5. Her being well positioned in the cookout, regardless of the outcome, already gets her to like a 6 or a 7 in my position. But maybe like a 7, 6. But to get her to that 8 or that 7 is kind of like, because you're going to the end with the two biggest win threats, and you don't have a resume, and you don't know if you'll make a resume. So I gotta give her a 7. She's very well positioned. She's in the cookout. She's going to make it to the end game, and she's smart. And she's probably going to increase her resume. And she has a lot that she could say in the final 2. But she just cannot beat Tiffany, and she cannot beat X right now, I don't think. And that's not good. That means she's not playing optimally. Doesn't mean she's not doing good enough. So I'm going to give her a 7. Next is Kyland. Kyland is tanking the hell out of his game. He is now disliked by most of the cookout members. He's disliked by most of the people not in the cookout. Kyland is probably the one person who's not in the cookout that may not even make it to the top 6 because of how badly he's playing. I feel like just because he's in the cookout, he kind of gets a 5. He still has Sarah Beth on his side, and he's still in the cookout. But once he gets to the 6, he's probably going to be 6th place. And if he's not because he wins a comp, he's going to be 5th. And if he's not because he wins a comp, he's going to be 4th. And if he's not because he wins a comp, he's going to be 3rd. And if he's not because he wins a comp, he might win, but he might be seen as a bitter... He might get bitter jurred. He might lose because he's bitter jurred. So, got to be a 5 to me. Like, he could win these comps. He's a great competition threat. He's a big competition threat. He could win it. But if he wins out at top 6 and he wins all the way to the top 2, he could still lose. I kind of want to give him a 6 because I feel like he has a better chance to win than Ozza and Derek F. And he still has a better chance to get to the end than Ozza and Derek F, in my opinion, because he could win these comps. So I'll give Kylan a 6. But it's probably going to drop. Or I don't have too much hope. It's a low 6. What he could do is stop being an ass. He's kind of being an ass to people. But when he's in power, that's kind of how he is. So maybe when he's out of power, he'll fix all of the mistakes he's made and make his game a little bit better and put himself back in a better position. But I still think at the end of the day, the people in the cookout are going to want him out first. I think people are going to keep pushing that because it's what helps all of them more. If they have a cookout target, once they get there, it's better for all 5 of them. So he's gonna get a 6 out of 10 for me. But I can still see him win this game. Still in a decent position. Sarah Beth. Sarah Beth is a 3 because there's not much she can do. She's not in the cookout. She's probably going to go home. She hasn't been playing optimally. She hasn't been doing much for her game to change anything. There's just not much she could do. She's probably going to go home soon. There's not really getting around it. She would have to win out, and she hasn't even won a comp yet. She's won like 1 comp. She's just not going to be able to do it. It's a 3 out of 10. There's not much you could do. You're not in the cookout. Next. I'm not dwelling. Next. Tiffany. Tiffany has kind of ran the game up until now, or continuing to run the game. Tiffany is probably the best strategist in the house, probably the best strategist in the cookout. Tiffany is trying to set herself up in the cookout the best she can. Right now, the final 3 that is formed is her, Xavier, and Hannah. With that final 3, Xavier may not take her, and that's not good for her. And Xavier might beat her, and that's not good for her, even if he takes her. I think what's good for Tiffany is that she doesn't want that to be the final 3. She wants it to be Ozza, herself, and Hannah. Against Ozza, herself, and Hannah, she could get Ozza to take her to final 2. She could get Hannah to take her to final 2, or she could beat them in the final 3 competition. If Tiffany goes to the end with Ozza and Hannah, it's possible that she will be the one being taken either way, and that she will win the game if she goes to the end with either of them. She is probably the only person who could win this game unanimously, I feel like she would have to be in the final 2 against Hannah to do that, because against Hannah, there's no non-cookout member that's tied to her that isn't tied to Tiffany, because DX is Hannah's number 1 outside of the cookout, but DX is closer to Tiffany anyways. DX is going to vote Tiffany over Hannah anyways. If it's Tiffany versus Hannah, I can see Tiffany getting all the votes and Tiffany winning unanimously. That might be what happens this season, because Tiffany's in one of the best spots, even within the cookout. They don't want her going first. They want Kylan gone first. If Kylan goes first, the final 3 that's locked in is Xavier, herself, and Hannah. As long as they win those next 2 competitions or whatever happens, Derek F and then Ozza will go. Final 3 is Xavier, Hannah, her. If she can convince Xavier, or if she can get Xavier evicted 4th, 1, or if she can convince Xavier to take her over Hannah, which is possible, she wins the game. If she can win the comp against Xavier, she wins the game. If Hannah can win the comp and take her, she wins the game. It's still likely that Tiffany could win the game. It's very possible. Xavier's her biggest hurdle because Xavier could win out, make it, and still get the votes. But I still think it's quite possible that Tiffany could win the game. She's still doing good. Even though Tiffany might want Claire to go or DX to go, none of this matters. People keep talking about, oh, they should want their cookout person to make it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If Alyssa's the last cookout member and she wins HOH, Tiffany's not going to go. It's probably going to be freaking Derek F. or Kyland. It's probably going to be Kyland. Whoever person who's not in the cookout, if it's the last person left, they're probably going to get out Kyland. That does not matter. It doesn't, and then they'll get out next, and it'll be top 5. It really does not matter. It doesn't matter that she wants Claire gone. It doesn't matter if Derek X go. Claire could go next. DX could go next. Sarah Beth could go after that, and Alyssa could be the last one. It doesn't matter because no matter what, if you're not Kyland, you're probably not going to be the first one out of. You're probably not going to be out of the cookout. It's probably just not gonna. You're probably making top 6, top 5. It doesn't really matter. So her little wanting all these people to go, I don't even think it matters. Her wanting Claire to go, I don't even think it matters. And Claire probably won't even go. Next week, Sarah Beth will probably go, and then we'll move along. And then it'll be Claire, Alyssa, and freaking Derek X left. And it's like, oh, Claire's still here. Like, I don't know. I'm not worried about that. I feel like her game is still looking really good. I feel like she's still in a good position within the cookout. I feel like she's not going home. I don't think she's going home until final 3, and maybe she gets cut at final 3. And if she can get Hannah to agree to going to the final 3 with Azah, that's even better because that means that she has a better way to the end. I think Tiffany's ideal final 4 is Derek F, Azah, herself, and Hannah. That way Tiffany and Hannah can win those last few comps, get Derek F and Azah out of here, go to final 2, and win the game. So there you go. Last but not least is Xavier. Xavier is probably the best positioned person in the house. Hold up. Tiffany, I will give a 9 out of 10 because I still feel Tiffany's the most likely person to win the game right now. She has a lot of jury votes locked in. Let's talk about Tiffany's jury votes really quick because jury has just started. Tiffany, actually at the end, I'm gonna just go through all the cookout members because fuck it. Xavier is, I feel one of the best positioned in the house. I'll give Tiffany a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I said it. Xavier is one of the best positioned in the house because he's very well positioned in the cookout, I feel. Of course, people outside of the cookout are kind of looking at him, but it doesn't matter because he's in the cookout, so he's going to make it to the end. Once he gets to that final 6, he has the final 3 with Hannah and Tiffany. He's very, very likely to win a lot of those competitions at the end. Xavier is probably the best person at competitions in the cookout, maybe other than Kyland, but it doesn't even matter because even Kyland kind of wants to take Xavier to the end too because Kyland feels like girls will vote for girls. So Xavier is really locked in. He has 2 final 3s. He has one with the boys, one with the girls, and Azah even likes him. So it's not even an issue for him. Xavier could easily win this game, and he's well positioned. There's not much else to say. He played a low-key game, and he didn't play really aggressively. His biggest pitfall might be Tiffany, if Tiffany decides to cut him out. But other than that, Xavier is probably well positioned. He's probably the best position. He's probably going to make it deep in the game, and he could easily win. But I feel like Xavier is a little bit less aggressive. I feel like Xavier has a little bit less jury votes locked in. I feel like at the end game, Xavier's going to get a little less. He might get outsmarted by Tiffany, but his competition ability is so good. So honestly, I might give Xavier. I'm gonna give Xavier an 8 out of 10 because Xavier's not playing hard. He didn't necessarily put himself in the position. Tiffany kind of like created this own final 3 for him. He didn't create it for himself. Tiffany created the final 3. Kyland and them wanted him in the final 3. He got put in a position. He didn't really put himself in a position. I don't feel comfortable giving him the same score as Tiffany, even though his win equity is pretty high. I just feel like the game he played is a little bit lesser than Tiffany's. So it puts him down. I feel like the game Tiffany played really brings her up, and the fact that she could still win brings her up. I feel like Xavier could win, but the game he played doesn't even necessarily deserve the win, in my opinion. Maybe not. With that being said, if you go through the cookout members, Azah, if she makes it to the end with anyone other than Big D, she kind of has 2 jury votes locked in. She has Big D locked in, and she has Britney locked in. That's really good for her because maybe Big D. That's the thing, maybe Big D. But we'll give it to her. That's good because that's 2 out of 5 that she needs. So according to jury votes, Azah has 2 out of 5. That's pretty good against any member in the cookout other than Big D. Same thing for Big D. Big D will probably have Azah and Britney. Also, that's 2 out of 5. That's decent. If Kyland makes it to the end, he will have, most likely, Sarah Beth. And that's it. So Kyland kind of has 1 vote out of 5 locked in if he makes it to the end. So Kyland's kind of looking like the least solid person when it comes to jury votes, which is kind of like, ooh, maybe we need to take Kyland. Hannah, if she makes it to the end with anyone other than Tiffany, she should have Derek X and Claire's vote locked in. Not necessarily, because Derek X and Claire will probably try to vote for the best player, but I think Hannah's a good enough player for Derek X and Claire to give her those votes. She probably will also have Tiffany's vote if she's in the final 2. If that's the case, Hannah has 3 locked in votes if she's not against Tiffany. If she is against Tiffany, Hannah kind of has 0 locked in votes because no one is going to necessarily vote Hannah over Tiffany. But if it's Hannah versus anyone else in the cookout, Hannah kind of has 3 locked in votes. That might be why Hannah wants to go to the end with Xavier, but it shouldn't be Xavier. But that might be why, because she might think, oh, I can get girls. I can get Britney's vote. Britney's a girl. Azah will want to vote for a girl. Alyssa might want to vote for a girl. That way she has the girls. She has Tiffany, Claire, and DX locked in. That could be enough votes for her. Xavier or Tiffany. Tiffany has, if she's not, no matter who Tiffany is in the end with, Tiffany has Derek X and Claire locked in for real. If Tiffany is in the end with Xavier, if Tiffany's in the end with anyone but Hannah, Tiffany probably also has Hannah. So Tiffany has 3, as long as she's not in the end with Hannah, locked in. If she's in with Hannah, she has 2. I think Tiffany also, if she's not in the end with Xavier, probably has Alyssa's vote. I think Tiffany also probably has Britney vote if she's not in the end with Azah or Derek F. I think Tiffany probably has Kyland and Xavier's vote, unless she's against either of them, probably. And I think that means Tiffany has the best chance at getting the votes at the end. I think a lot of people are willing to vote Tiffany, unless she's against someone who they're just closer with. I think Tiffany has the best equity when it comes to the jury votes. I think Xavier has Alyssa locked in. Maybe not if he's against Tiffany, because she might want to vote for a girl or vote for someone. Just vote for Tiffany instead, especially if she knows what's happening in the game. But if he's not against Tiffany, he probably has Alyssa locked in. He might even have Sarah Beth locked in. Might not. I feel like Sarah Beth's gonna vote, with her heart, with her gut. Xavier could also get Kyland's vote. Xavier could also get Tiffany's vote if he's not against Tiffany or Hannah. I feel like Xavier could get Hannah's vote. I feel like Xavier has a couple of votes that are on his side too. I think Tiffany has the best chance getting the jury votes. I think Xavier has the second best chance. I kind of think Kyland has the third best chance because he kind of will maybe get Derek X, depending who he's against. Maybe Claire. People will want to vote for who played a better game. I think people will respect Kyland's game. And then the other 3 after that. You know what I'm saying? The other 2. Well, there you go. That's kind of all I have to say. At this point in the game, the cookout has kind of taken over officially. So it really just comes down to who's positioning themselves best in the cookout. And right now, the cookout is more focused on getting to the 6 than positioning themselves. The only one really focused on it is kind of Tiffany, trying to squeeze Azah into this final 3 deal she has with herself and Hannah. Everyone else is kind of just lollygagging. That being said, that's the end. That's all I have to say. Check me out next week on Wednesday, where I will be going through the people's games again. Maybe Kyland can't approve. What the fuck am I saying? Maybe Kyland can improve his position in the game. He's the one who I'm kind of looking out for maybe changing where he's at in the end game with the cookout. Maybe Xavier will be knocked out of this little situation with him and Hannah. Maybe Azah will not be brought into this final 3. Maybe Tiffany will really optimize her in game. It's kind of a lot of things to kind of check for within these next coming weeks. But the twists are going to kind of halt a lot of the plans because people are going to be focused on that. But all right, I'm done. Thank you for listening. Check me out next Wednesday. Mwah.